Welcome to Passport to Everywhere with Indigare's Melissa Biggs-Bradley.
Melissa is the founder and CEO of Indigare, a travel and media company committed to inspiring and empowering people to change their lives and the world through travel, while having a positive impact on the places they visit. On the show, Melissa will transport you to dream destinations, share the latest travel news and trends, and introduce you to the most extraordinary people she has met on the road.
I think Sacher is a small piece of Vienna, has always been, hopefully will always be. That's what you won't find anywhere else in the world.
Follow her behind the scenes to the world's most legendary hotels and join us as she explores the future of travel.
Welcome to Passport to Everywhere.
Welcome back to Passport to Everywhere. I'm excited to dive into our 2024 episodes with one of our legendary hotels episodes. The Hotel Sacher, located right in the heart of Vienna, Austria, is one of the most historic hotels in Europe. Even if you haven't stayed there, you may recognize its name from the famous Viennese dessert, the Sacher torte, a delicious chocolate cake made with apricot jam and served best with a little bit of whipped cream. The recipe was created in 1832, and it laid the foundation not only for a culinary masterpiece, but also for the Sacher's long-standing name recognition. And even though the cake was first served at the imperial court almost 200 years ago, people still line up every day to taste the cake at the Sacher Cafe. Hotel Sacher opened its doors in 1876 under Edward Sacher, son of the famed pastry maker who had been only 16 when he whipped up his first famous torte. Edward and his wife made the hotel into one of the city's most upscale social hubs, a status that it maintains to this day, through wars, ownership changes, and many renovations. The hotel has welcomed many famous guests over the years, such as Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Prince Rainier of Monaco, Grace Kelly, President John F. Kennedy, and many, many more. In fact, browsing the photo wall of past guests on the first floor is a super fun thing to do. Today I'm joined by Hotel Sacher's current owner, Alexandra Winkler, as well as her husband and business partner, Matthias. Alexandra's family has run the Sacher since 1934, when they acquired it after Anna Sacher's death. Since 2015, Alexandra and Matthias, alongside the Sacher team, has continued to honor the heritage, cherishing the famous family-owned and operated brand, while also expanding and modernizing. Hotel Sacher now has a presence in Salzburg and the Alps of Tyrol, as well as independent cafes representing the classic Viennese coffee houses all around Austria and down all the way to the Adriatic Sea. I'm excited to be in Vienna together as we discuss the rich history of the Sacher story.
Join Melissa on the journey. You're listening to Passport to Everywhere. Here's your host, Melissa Biggs-Bradley.
Thank you both so much for being with me on the podcast today. I would love to start with you, Alexandra. I know that you and your brother took over, in many ways, the ownership of the Sacher back in 1990, but obviously you were young then and your mother helped you running it. But I'd love to hear a little bit about the history of the Sacher and how it came into your family, because it is obviously an icon of Vienna. I've been lucky to be staying here for a few days, and the lines around the block to get into this Café Sacher are nonstop. It's amazing. But I'd love to hear a little bit from you, sort of the history of the hotel and also how your family came to be involved.
Well, Melissa, thank you for having Matthias and me. Let me start with the history. I think I have to start with the year 1832. At that time, Franz Sacher was 16 years old. He was a cook apprentice at Count Metternich's place. The real chef was off duty, so they asked Franz if he can create a cake, because they suddenly decided to have guests. And we had the good luck that Franz took the right ingredients, that everybody loved his cake, and that he was allowed to name it after his name, namely Sacher cake. So this was, how everything started. He had a few sons, and one of his sons even went to New York. He had, what I heard, a restaurant in the Madison Avenue. But Eduard Sacher was then his son who opened up this place. He was traveling the world before, so he had traiteur shops. He was in Paris, he was in London. And then this building where we are now used to be a theater. It burned down, and it was rebuilt as a maison meublée. And Eduard bought this house, and together with his wife, let me say it was Anna Sacher, she was working here. She was selling the cakes. They fell in love. He was the one who made the brand Sacher grow. Unfortunately, he passed away very early, so Anna had to take over the management, which was not very easy at that time because women were not really doing business. So she had a very hard time fighting to get the permission to run this hotel. And whenever you were asking her, who is the boss? She said, the boss, it's me. And she signed as Eduard Sacher. Then she was quite old and suffered from Alzheimer. And the hotel was nearly bankrupt. She passed away in 1930. And then it was my great-grandfather, who used to be one of the brilliant lawyers at that time in Vienna. He bought the hotel together with a partner who was a cafetier. And then they managed it together, and then his partner passed away. So this is how it came 100% into our family.
Okay. And how did the two of you meet?
First, I have to say welcome to Vienna. And
Thank you,
welcome to the
Matthias.
Sacher. We met, actually we knew each other for a long time, but finally meeting, it was in St. Moritz in Switzerland, where we have both been invited to a skiing trip, so to say. And that's where we met, and that's where we actually started talking to each other.
Before we didn't talk to each other.
There was no reason to talk to each other, let's put it this way. And there we fell in love, and that's how it started. And now we have 3 kids and a wonderful family.
And did you start working together early on, or when did you join?
Matthias always said he never wants to come into the family business. And I have to say, thank God we have the children, because the only reason why I could convince him to come were our children.
I remember my mother-in-law asking me this question if I would want to join the hotel. And I said, no, my personal freedom is probably the biggest thing I have. And I decided not to do it. But over the years, we finally made the decision together, I would say, that we probably take over leadership in our business, take the responsibility your family once started, and do that together. And now here I am. Yeah.
And what have been, if you have to think about the most important part of the history and the brand to maintain, what is the most difficult part of keeping up with a legendary brand and yet also modernizing it? How do you do that?
I mean, you have a lot of history, and this history is very important, and we do look back with deep respect. But at the same time, you have to look forward, to look ahead, to look into the future. And how do you combine this respect for the past but enthusiasm for the future? That's always, no matter if you talk about interior, if you talk about your staff, your employees, everything concerning the brand is between these two things. And that's probably the most difficult part to do.
And you did a renovation not that long ago.
Well, we're renovating continuously. We did a really big renovation back in 2005 when we really closed the hotel for 3 months. We added 2 more floors. We were working together with Pierre Franchon. And this was a major impact, because we removed everything from the hotel. Each spoon, each picture, everything. And we had, I think, about 200 construction workers in here, so that we somehow could manage the time schedule. So I think this was the biggest and major change. We broke walls, we enlarged the entrance area, we did all the installations in the bathrooms, electricity-wise, the kitchen, so nothing was like it used to be. And since then, it's just ongoing. I mean, we are always changing things in rooms. doing new banquet rooms, having new technology in the rooms. And the same in Salzburg, yeah. So we also did in the last few years each and every room in there.
But I think the most important thing is that usually these international chains hire architects. They come from wherever, mostly non-locals, print out their plans, and there you go. And this is different with us. So there is architects, of course, and Pierre-Yves Fauchon is, I would consider him being part of the family already because we have a long relationship going on. But there is always the owners who add at least 50% of whatever you see here. And actually, we are in a room that goes back to founding these houses, and we sit on or we stand on a floor that goes back to 1870. And if you look at the ceiling,
yeah, it was fun when this ceiling was all covered with a lot of lac. And then we decided to remove that. And then we found these amazing medaillons, which you can see up there. And then we decided to work together with the Austrian Heritage Commission. And they said, well, we have to be very careful because they also come from, 1980. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1890.
From 1890, yes.
From 1890. Also the wooden floor, which you can see in here. So this is, I think, one of the most... what makes the difference between a big chain and a family-owned hotel. When we find these things, we are not thinking in budgets, but we try to preserve these things because we think in generations. And probably we do something which might not pay off in this moment, but thinking long way, of course it makes sense for our children to keep all these things, and we are very proud of this.
And last word to this, I think every piece of furniture you see here could easily stand at our home. So coming to the Sacher is always a little bit of coming to a private home. So every room looks different. There is nothing looks alike the other. So if you have this, I think it's hard to describe in words, but you will find a very personal touch of the owner family at the Sacher. And that's what you experience, like you haven't been to Vienna if you haven't been to the Sacher.
I mean, we have over 1,000 oil paintings in this hotel, and each and every one of these is hung by the family, yeah?
And can you tell me, I was actually going to ask you about the antiques and the oil paintings. Are those things that you have collected over the years? Did some of them come with the hotel? Have you added? And what's been the process?
Anna Sacher has bought many of them because her brother was working, he was studying at the Academy of Arts. So she was very close with famous artists because they were just friends of her brother. And it quite often happened that she said she doesn't want to have money for somebody sleeping here or eating here, but she would rather have a piece of art. And then the family continued. And what we now try to have modern art by having our Sacher, the wooden box where we can buy the original Sacher Tort. We have the so-called artists collection, where we have a famous artist always doing the design of this box. We have it with a limited edition, always 1,000 pieces. For example, we had Sarah Morris, we had George Baselitz, we had Erwin Wurm, and every money we make with this is donated 100% to a charity organization.
Wow. Speaking of the Sacher Tort, do you have any idea how many torts you sell a year?
It's about 360,000 of the cake and about 1 million of the small cubes. I'm sure you had them on your bed.
Wow.
All handmade and all made after the same recipe like Franz Sacher did it in 1832. So we tried to find out how many cakes we sold since then. We did not manage. So we need probably AI to help us out on that. So far we haven't found out, but we're very proud of it because it's probably the only piece of history you can actually eat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and take home.
Yeah. No, that's, and you ship them around the world as well?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
we do have a partner and ship them all over.
That's unbelievable. And what happened? I'm curious. What happened to the hotel in the 1930s when the Nazis came in and took over Austria?
We had the British troops here. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, it was, it went quite well through this phase, I have to say.
Yeah.
And then we started, my grandfather already started with a few renovations, yeah.
Back then. Okay.
And to be honest, the opera right next door was badly hit. The Sacher not. So the building kind of came through this terrible period in our history quite well. Everything else has been a tragedy, as we all know.
Yeah.
But it was, from the building's perspective, it was easy to recover.
Okay. And there are a lot of new. There are a few new hotels that have opened already in Vienna. There's talk of more coming. I'm curious what it is that you think is sort of making Vienna seemingly popular, more popular with tourists these days, and certainly with luxury hotel brands these days than it has been in the past.
We experienced Vienna being more and more popular over the last years. And I think it's an interesting combination of several facts, meaning it's a very safe city. Second, it's really, really clean. And third, I think there is a lot of history in arts, in architecture. Everywhere you go in the city, mostly first and neighboring districts, you will find a huge piece of history. So you need best thing is you have a guide and tells you all these things. We once did that with our kids, a tour through the first district, and even us living here, we learned a lot. So I think the combination between safety, cleanliness, history, and even today's art, we have so many artists coming to Vienna for a certain period of time and paint and even write music. I think that's the interesting part. Vienna and Austria has always been kind of a melting pot on the one hand and bridging between north and south, east and west, old and young, digital and traditional. So all these things happening in small Vienna. And I think this is the main, or that these are many reasons to come here. That's at least what our guests tell us.
Yeah.
And I think the music, yeah. I mean, Vienna is so famous for its music. If you think about the New Year's concert, yeah, the opera, which just, yeah, a few walks away from here. This is unique.
Yeah.
During weekdays, if you open the windows in the suite we are right now, you can hear the opera singers practice. Yeah,
because every rehearsal room is here.
Just right across the street. And we just met guests in our hotel. They came from New Zealand. They told us, I think they are here for 5 or 6 days, and they have 8 concerts. So I asked them, why did you come to Vienna? And they told us, it's the music. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting combination of history and today's world with a lot of art and music.
Yeah. And in fact, I've just been reading a wonderful book about Vienna, about how it was the city of ideas for the 21st century. And as you said, a small city that had so many people in the arts and the sciences and philosophy and music who all came together at the turn of the century and really created many of the things that have left a huge impact for the rest of the century. And you don't really understand it unless you come and see where it was born. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And in terms of, you mentioned earlier, and I think you're totally right, the Sacher has a sense of staying in, yes, a grand piece of history, but also you have the sense of your family and of being at a family home. So it has an intimacy that is very special for a grand hotel. Is that what you think sort of makes it the most iconic place to stay when someone comes to Vienna?
You know, for me, the Sacher, the special thing about the Sacher, it has always been a hotel since its opening, yeah? And it has always been owned and run by a family, yeah? No matter if it was, first of all, the Sacher family and now Winkler and Gürtler family. So if you come here, you come to a Viennese family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like coming to, as Matthias already said, coming to our home. I mean, and it's all very boutique, yeah? It's not a big lobby and every room looks the same. No, it's different. We are in 6 different houses, and you might realize this when you're walking through the corridors. Each and every room looks different. Even on the 4th floor, we have much more rooms than on the 1st floor. And I think this makes the Sacher special.
Yeah. And what do you think is particularly, you've stayed all over the world in different hotels, what is particularly Viennese about this hotel, or Austrian?
I think if you look at the design, that still goes back to the emperor's times. You will find that. You will find the piece of art on the walls. You will find old furniture, so to say. And saying this, I remember an interesting afternoon because Bill Marriott, the owner of Marriott, came to Vienna and wanted to see one of his hotels. And they called us if he would be able to see the Sacher as well. I said, but maximum 30 minutes and just quick in, quick out. I said, of course. And he spent, I think, 2.5 hours in our hotel, going up and down and seeing really everything. And when he left, when I said goodbye to him, I asked him, what was the part you liked most in our hotel? And he didn't think very long, and he repeated and immediately answered, it's the artwork. So I think, coming back to this interesting conversation we had, I think the artwork is very Viennese, and the whole atmosphere. I think Sacher is a small piece of Vienna, has always been, hopefully will always be. That's what you won't find anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, and let me add something. I mean, for example, if you go to our Goine bar, yeah, you might have seen these chandeliers here, yeah. They are one of the very first electrified chandeliers by the Lobmeier company, yeah. Also, if you look at our silver we are using, you can see it and displayed in the vitrines. This is also something, pieces of it used to be at Meierling, at Kronprinz Rudolf's place, yeah. So I think you can feel this history when you just go through the rooms.
And we said before, Vienna has always been kind of a melting pot. Sacher has been like a platform, a bridge between north, south, east, west, etc. And it's still today. You will, if you come to the Sacher, you find both international travelers and people from Vienna who stay here, probably not only in the hotel, but mostly in the restaurants, in the cafes. And they do that also since generations. So you have a very authentic impression and a very authentic experience if you come to the Sacher. Yeah, you could be Viennese for 5 days.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, actually, Matthias, you talked about the training and the employees and how important they are. And obviously, in a hotel like this, it's incredibly important that they make the guests feel welcome. How are you training? What do you focus on the most in terms of your employees and getting them to embrace and embody the values of the family?
I think it starts when we hire people. And there is a key question. Do you love to be a host? Do you love to work in our business? And when there is no clear yes, and if we have any doubts on that, that's probably not the right place to work. So being Gastgeber, as we call it in German, being a host, is the most important thing that you need to love and need to be passionate about. No matter if you work in the IT department or if you are a chef in our kitchen, no matter where you are, you need to have this special genes, so to say. And then we try to find the right job for you. So it's not that the job ad finds the people, we find the people, and then we put them into certain jobs or into certain responsibilities. And then we have a lot of training, focusing on the one hand on we are part of the leading hotels of the world with very clear standards, and we train these standards in 10 or 15 minutes trainings every day. But it's also more than that. We try to find out talents people have and also work on these talents. So I think it was 2016, we founded the Sacher School of Excellence, where we tried to offer trainings not only on the job, but much further to all our employees. So every employee has another 3 days, full days of training on political science, on being a responsible person. In, for example, we help people, either very old ones who cannot walk anymore. We do tours with the wheelchairs. We cook for homeless and all of that. So that's also an important part. We look at you not as a workforce or employee. We look at you as a human being and try to treat you as a human being, both guests and employees. And I think that's what's different to other companies. And that's why we have people who work with us since 45 years, but also people working with us 45 days.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
the mixture between those, those who are here since so many years and those who are here quite young, this is what makes the Sacher special and what makes the special atmosphere among the team.
Yeah.
This is Passport to Everywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
Welcome to Passport to Everywhere. I'm Melissa Biggs-Bradley, your host. And today we're uncovering the beauty, music, art, and history of Vienna with the owner and managing director of the Sacher Hotel, one of the world's most legendary properties.
Passport to Everywhere with Melissa Biggs-Bradley continues. Listen to new episodes every Thursday on all podcast platforms.
I'm curious, Alexandra, we've been talking about generational working and the hotel being part of the family. What would you say was the most important thing you learned from your mother?
I think the most important is to be authentic and do your own thing. My mother had a very hard time entering this business because she was the first wife of my father. He was then married 2 more times. And when she came in here, everything was just male dominated. And they were kind of making fun about her that now she's the boss. And she had a very hard time getting into all this. And I think the most important is to find your own way in doing things. She did it amazing, but we are different and we are doing it different, I think. And the other thing is, I think one needs to believe in things and one needs to have a vision.
And how is your brother still involved?
My brother is doing quality management. He's mainly having the focus on quality in food and beverage.
Including his wife. So they both do that. So we are real family business. You see a lot of family members around being involved in day-to-day work, but still trying to give our employees enough space for their own ideas. So that's sometimes hard because you probably think of this should be done differently. But we try to give each and every person working with Sacher enough space to breathe and to breathe their own ideas.
Yeah. And you mentioned the property you have in Salzburg. Can you talk a little bit about that?
My father bought it, a few years before he died. And it was fun because he came to Salzburg, he saw the hotel, and he fell in love with it. So this was really love from the first sight. And the hotel was also family-owned before. And then, he decided to buy it. He did a major renovation at that time. And we are very happy because I think it's just a perfect combination with the Sacher in Vienna. It's located on the bank of the Salzach River, facing the fortress, this Hotel Salzburg. So you see the old part of the city. And it was built as a hotel, different than this hotel here. So if you look at the wonderful staircase, it has a very special atmosphere in there.
And didn't you do a big renovation there as well?
As well, yes, together with Pierre-Yves Franchon. And we finished. So the last thing we actually did is we added our sky suite between the two rooftops, I would say. Really an amazing suite overlooking the city with a separate dining room, a TV room, a wonderful terrace. We're very proud on this one.
So I'd love to talk to you both about Vienna. Did you both grow up in Vienna?
No, I grew up in Vienna. I was born here.
Okay.
And my husband grew up in wonderful Styria.
Yeah, 3 hours from here. Very countryside. But I came to Vienna when I was 19 to study here.
Okay. And so what is a perfect day in Vienna for each of you?
Well, it depends. If I'm going to the hotel, the perfect day is a fully booked hotel with a lot of happy guests, yeah. Many of them whom I can talk to, whom I can, have a few personal words with. If I'm not at the hotel, we're living in the 19th district, which is about 20 minutes in the vineyards of Grinzing. I would start it with a walk in the Vienna forests, and then probably I would go to one of the Heurigen, which is these very easygoing restaurants.
Yeah, I think it depends what you personally like. You can do almost everything. Depends on the time of the year. So if I had the choice, I would rather come in May or in September, because then the weather is warm but not hot. The days are kind of long, and the neighboring countryside is really, really beautiful. So if you're in sports, you go like 20 minutes from the Sacher and you're in the Vienna woods and do a biking tour there. Or go to the Prater, which is an amusement park, small part of it. The rest is pure nature, and you see horseback riding, etc., etc. Even if you like to run, that's perfect there. The Vienna Marathon always starts there, or at least nearby. If you're into museums, 5 minutes around the Sacher, you have
The Albertina.
Important museums. So if you're into music, you probably open the window of this suite and hear the singers practice and see at night the premiere or whatever in the next door States Opera. There's a lot of Schauspiel. There's a lot of
Theaters and
theater.
plays.
Yeah, theater and plays, which again, language might be a problem for international travelers. So a perfect day in Vienna is, I would summarize it as relaxed and diving into this special Viennese speed. It's a little bit slower. You try to enjoy everything you do. So the breakfast is not a quick in, quick out. It's like probably an hour. The walk is not like rushing to a church or a museum. It's like really enjoying this walk. So that's probably special about Vienna. And there are so many destinations our concierges would fill many days to experience Vienna. The most important thing is to take your time, whatever you like to do.
Yeah, that's
And
well
there are
said.
so many, there are so many special shops also still owned by a family. As I already said, for example, Lobmeier. Or if you go to Markus Scheer, he's a very good friend of ours who is doing shoes in, I think, the 5th generation. Yeah. And I think it's about these things. It's about these, special trips to shops which you might not find in guides. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus it's, of course, we have these international brands also. It's, we don't need to name them in your podcast. And Vienna, like Paris, like London, like every other city, has those. But what's special about Vienna is, like you mentioned, there is a lot of still existing handcraft. We're in 6th, 7th, 8th generation. Wonderful products are sold and even produced before. So that's something probably you should also have a look at when you come to Vienna.
Can you share some of those? You mentioned share. I know there's a men's clothing shop right around the corner from the hotel. Is it Jungmann?
Jungmann, yes, that's a funny thing. Jungmann, there's a special corridor which leads from the Sacher to the Jungmann shop. And the story is told that Anna Sacher used to have the female guests go with them under this corridor to this shop, and she motivated them buying and her own dresses, deciding by themselves what they want to wear, So this is something I really special about this, about this lady as well. And if you go over there, you see they still have the books, from that time, where you can see which pieces were ordered by Anna Sacher, which fabrics did she have. It's amazing.
That's incredible. And then are there other ones like that, like Lobmeyer and Cher, that you like, that you would recommend, the family
What I
run?
think is very nice is a silver shop. It's called Rotzet and Fischmeister on the Kohlmarkt.
He's dealing with new, but also with very old silver. A colleague of him in the 7th district is
Paul Vaughan, Jarosinski and Vaughan silver. You can go and visit him, and you can really see how he's working. This might be something interesting as well.
Yeah, there's an interesting manufacturing included, and he does silver for all over the world, for emperors, etc., etc. So that's for silver. If you like clothing, you see Kniege, who is an institution, dresses and suits.
Or Susanne Pisowski. She's also doing amazing dresses for women.
Yeah, and the Kniege son, Niedersüß, is very close by to the Sacher. That's also an interesting handcrafting atelier of men's dress. So there are many of those. If you're into that, if you're really interested in, our concierges can book a tour, and I think it's worth experiences. You don't need to buy anything. That's not a you're not under pressure to buy things, but also these handcrafting places, they are amazing. We love to go there actually by ourselves.
What might be interesting for women is a jewelry shop named Köchert, and they are famous for the sissy stars.
Yes, I saw those. That's beautiful. And what about in terms of restaurants? Do you have favorite places that are typically Viennese, or that you think somebody coming must visit?
Viennese, if you want to have a really good Wiener Schnitzel or Tafelspitz, it's of course the Rote Bar at the Sacher. And apart from that, I could recommend Plachuta, who has one shop, one restaurant in the Walfischgasse. It's a Gasthaus zur Oper.
And you recently wrote a cookbook, didn't you?
We have a few cookbooks.
Okay.
A few years ago, I did one, but now I think it's already the third one after mine, which was done by our executive chef.
Okay. And these are for Austrian traditional cooking. Okay, fantastic. And I'm curious, where else, obviously, I would imagine you love going to Salzburg, but where else in Austria do you like to travel, and why? What brings you to Salzburg?
Of course, to Salzburg. It's our hotel and the Salzburg Festival, which brings us there. Salzburg is really an international cultural melting point, let me say it like this, with the festival which you have during Easter, during summer, the Mozart Week in January. So this is something you have to see if you're a music lover. Or it's Tyrol. We have another hotel. My mother owns this. It's in Seefeld. It's about 20 minutes away from Innsbruck. So it's in the mountains. You can ski there. And it has an amazing nature. It's, I would say, a retreat.
And you go there often?
We will go there now, with our children.
It's close to Munich and close to Innsbruck, so getting there is quite easy. It's freshly renovated by her style, and she also worked with Pierre Fauchon. And you would find it's located on 1,200 meters height, so you can go ski cross country in winter, you can bike and walk in summer. You have a huge
water pools. You have
wellness there, yeah.
You have a little lake, you have an sport pool, you have a normal swimming pool.
And you have beautiful mountains around. And then, personally, I love to go to my home, which is Styria. Also, a lot of mountains, beautiful lakes, not too many people, and being very, very countryside.
That's wonderful. And is there something that you wish more people knew about Vienna, or a misconception that you would want to correct about Vienna? What should people know that they don't?
Whoa.
I think Vienna is quite modern, also talking about art. I mean, there's the Albertina Modern, which is really specialized on modern artists. And for example, the Heidi Horton collection. I'm not sure if you heard about this one. Yeah. These are two things which I would definitely put on my bucket list.
Yeah, I think Vienna is more modern than you might think. There's a lot of history, but there's a lot of modernity too.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. This has
Thank
been
you
a
for
real
having
treat.
us.
Yeah, thank you for being here and asking all these questions. Interesting because we every time we talk to our guests and we learn a lot. And I think your last question, what or why is Vienna sometimes misunderstood, is something we will take with us, and I think we will discuss that with our kids tonight. What do they think that is probably Vienna misunderstood for? That's a very interesting question.
Well, it's interesting in part because I was listening to somebody checking in the other day, and he said, he traveled for work to 40 different countries, and he'd never been to Austria before. He was an older gentleman. And in some ways, I think that Vienna is so at the heart of history, and has been for so long. As I mentioned that book, I'm fascinated by the between the 1880s and the 1920s, almost everything was born in Vienna. Even this book that I'm reading, the concept of advertising and customers' feedback, and obviously all of the psychology that came out of here that has changed customer behavior, how we think about science and medicine. And yet, in some ways, because after the war, Austria became so small as a country, the influence is sometimes not appreciated.
Yeah. No, that's very true. We experience it the same way. And we're trying to keep up with this great past. Being a small country, the only answer you can give today is being open for everybody, being tolerant, being secure, but also not having too many closed borders. Tolerate and appreciate everybody who wants to come here, accepting our rules. So that's an interesting perspective you just opened. Our government, and I think the whole population of Austria, is trying to be as open as possible because we're such a small country.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the things I learned at the Leopold yesterday was in 1900, Vienna was, our guide said, the fourth largest city in the world. We Googled it, and Google says that it was only the seventh largest city of the world, but still it was one of the largest cities in the world, and yet the population today is much the same as it was then.
But we learned, for example, that music, that art, all these categories make it possible to be still a small country, a small city, but being very international. And sometimes, you mentioned Salzburg before, the summer festival. I mean, it's, I think, the biggest music festival in the world happening in Salzburg. And all the main artists, they come to Salzburg, they sing, they perform. So music and art is an important angle to still be in a world capital.
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably not the size of the economy, but the openness the tolerance of the population on the one hand, and the music and art on the other hand.
Well, and the progressiveness of the ideas is what I find so interesting. You go to something like the Leopold and you realize that the ideas that came out of Vienna still have enormous influence in design, in music, in culture, in everything. Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, thank you again for sharing your perspective and for really creating and maintaining such an incredibly iconic and special place in the heart of Vienna.
We thank you.
We are special because our guests are special, just like you. So thank you for being here, and we're happy to continue our onward journey with guests like you. Thank you.
Thank you. Huge thanks to Alexandra and Matthias for joining me today to talk about the historic Sacher Hotel and its influence on the charming city of Vienna. For more on the hotel, follow @Sacher Hotels on Instagram. And if you're interested in joining a special insider journey with me to Vienna this September, go to the Journeys page on indagare.com to learn details. We'll be visiting the city's most beautiful palaces and museums, plus spending time with insiders, including Alexandra and Matthias.
Here are this week's Indagare Insights.
I combined my scouting for this fall's insider journey to Vienna with a Christmas holiday with my family. They decided they wanted a festive Christmas away this year, so we chose to spend the week in Vienna, which my husband and son had not visited before, and my daughter and I were eager to return to. Among many things we discovered is that Vienna may be the best city in all of Europe for visitors looking for a joyful, cultural-filled holiday away. Vienna literally sparkles in December. The extravagantly lit Christmas markets all over the city and the twinkling lights that are suspended over all the grand avenues resemble stars brought down to earth. But really what made our experience so special is that the city's cultural offerings don't close for the holidays. Even on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, we could explore the great museums and attractions. We even went to the opera on Christmas Eve. So this week, I'm going to share some of my favorite musts for a visit any time of the year. To get a sense of the city's history, I suggest that you start with a visit to the Hofburg Palace. The Sissi Museum tells the story of the celebrated empress and also includes some of the imperial apartments. And don't forget, it's definitely worth watching the Sissi miniseries on television before you visit. But the Belvedere Palace is also something to see. It's where Klimt's famous painting The Kiss hangs. And then there's the Schönbrunn Palace, which is another one that shouldn't be missed. As for museums, the Kunsthistorische, which was built by Emperor Franz Joseph in 1891, is equal in my mind to the Louvre and the Prado in terms of its collection of Renaissance and Old Masters. I also love the Leopold Museum, which was founded by Elizabeth and Rudolf Leopold, eye doctors who amassed 6,000 works of 20th century Austrian art, including amazing Gustav Klimt and Egon Schiele pieces. Its Vienna 1900 Birth of Modernism exhibit really brings the intimacy of the city's intellects to life, and it underscores how Vienna's visionary scientists, painters, musicians, and architects influenced each other and together lay the foundations of 20th century progress. And as this city is the city of music, I highly recommend seeing an opera at the Vienna State Opera, which is famous for its opera balls. Or you can attend a concert in one of the palaces. In fact, opera lovers can even visit one of the houses where Beethoven lived. Check out indagare.com for more of my favorite spots, including restaurants and details on the family-owned shops that Alexandra and Matthias mentioned. And as I said earlier, if you want to visit the city with special access visits with curators and meetings with insiders like the Winklers, join me in September for our 5-day art-filled visit to Vienna. You can find details on indagare.com/journeys. Next week, I'll be joined by the French supermodel, style icon, and designer Inès de la Fressange. I hope you'll join us as we uncover the secrets of Parisian style. Thanks for listening to the show. I'm Melissa Biggs-Bradley, and you've been listening to Passport to Everywhere.
Thank you for joining us at Passport to Everywhere.
We hope you'll join the journey and subscribe. For more travel inspiration, visit indagare.com. INDAGARE. This has been Passport to Everywhere.